Found on YouTube the link of Madonna auditioning for Fame.
Yeah.
She's awkward. What were some of like the moments where you think you saw someone and either your judgment was better than what they wanted, per se, Tom Cruise, or someone like Madonna? You go, no way.
Well, they're two different things. No, with Madonna, it was she was great until she started reading, and then she was terrible. So there was really no discussion then if she had read well. But I mean, because she can act in certain roles, but the part of the virginal girl next door is not exactly in her wheelhouse. So that's not her. The Tom Cruise is one of my biggest mistakes. I nixed him for a project which is basically Superboy without being called Superboy. And I think he gave a terrible audition, both in the room and on tape. And my assistant at that time, Mary Buck, who went on to become a successful casting director, said, Joel, you taught me not to judge by one test. Why are you being so adamant? And I was just stupid. I made a mistake. Hi, my name is Joel Thurm, and I was a really, really, really good casting director and cast movies and television shows that will be around long after I'm gone, such as Airplane, Rocky Horror Show, Taxi, Love Boat, Fantasy Island. I'm jumping over between genres and types because I was good at what I did.
Yes, that is the voice of Joel Thurm, and you've tuned into Comedy History 101, where we school you in comedy. I am Harmon, and hello. Joel was the casting director for NBC for a solid decade. Any big comedy of the 70s and 80s, Joel most likely had a hand in casting the show. Here, I'll read a list of shows that he's worked on. The A-Team, The Bob Newhart Show, Charlie's Angels, Family, The Facts of Life, Family Ties, Fantasy Island, Knight Rider, LA Law, The Love Boat, Starsky and Hutch, Golden Girls, Seinfeld, and more. And he has a new book out called Sex, Drugs, and Pilot Season, and we'll do a deep dive into Joel's book, as well as insider information on casting in Hollywood. But before we jump into the episode, a few quick plugs. On Friday, October 6th, 7 p.m. at the Red Room in the Lower East Side, I'll be presenting my show, Tale, NYC's finest storytelling. No hokey gimmicks, no dumb themes. Tale brings you the best in New York storytelling. Also, on Thursday, October 19th, 7 p.m. at Young Ethel's in Park Slope, come see my show, That 80s Improv Challenge. 3 improv teams compete in a 3-round game show, creating scenes inspired by clips from videos from the 1980s. And it gets better on October 1st at the Santa Cruz Comedy Festival. My show, AI versus Human Roast Battle, is the opening night show. Holy shit. And you can find out all about these show dates at my site, harmonleon.com, or on the social medias at harmonleon. Also, we are soon going to be dropping our first audio documentary. It centers on the Grateful Dead and ticket counterfeiting. And we'll have some more information on that. Also, take some time to like, subscribe, and comment on Comedy History 101. Throw us a few stars on iTunes. Show your love of the podcast because every little star, every little comment helps. Or you can check out our site and comment there, comedyhistory101.com. And now, without further ado,
You're stupid. Everybody's so stupid.
I'm trying to use the phone! Excuse me!
Comedy History 101. Just to give you some logistical input, I am coming to you from Brooklyn, which I believe
You heard Brooklyn.
you're from Brooklyn, right?
More than that, I'm from East New York in Brooklyn, which is really Brooklyn. I'm not talking about gentrified Bushwick or or any of those places. I'm from down and dirty East New York.
Like what neighborhood?
East New York was the name of the neighborhood. East New York was part of Brooklyn.
Really?
Yeah, it's the southeast corner, close to Jamaica Bay. If you look at your subway map, you see a stop called New Lots. Next to the last stop is called Van Siclen. Well, I was 2 blocks from that. My apartment and my grandfather's farm was 2 blocks from that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And just, I mean, completely off topic, but Times Square used to be a big horse corral. I don't know if that's interesting or even on topic, but it's just something I learned about. A lot of farmland, a lot of horses.
It's slightly tangential.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyways, first, congratulations on the book, Sex, Drugs, and the pilot season. So what I gather is, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are the Michael Jordan of casting directing.
Well, I would have to agree with you. I mean, I was very, very lucky to get great projects. I mean, it's a combination of things. I was good, so they wanted me to do it, and then I delivered. So no, I was, considering, I lead off with Grease, Airplane, Rocky Horror Show. Okay. 3 iconic movies, not so terrible. And then I go to Taxi, and then I go to Love Boat, Fantasy Island, Starsky and Hutch, and all of a sudden it's like this stuff that I worked on is kind of overwhelming even to me. Although when I was doing it, who knew? I was just doing my job.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if this is irony or synchronicity, but when I had the interview set up with you, I went on social media and randomly popping up was David Letterman's audition for the movie Airplane.
Oh, God, I haven't seen that in years. If you can get that to me, I would love to see it again.
Yeah, so maybe just give us some inside baseball on when you're casting Airplane. How does the process start? I believe there was some kind of a difference in opinions between the Zucker brothers, who, again, Airplane, one of the most iconic comedy movies of all time, and, what kind of the studios wanted in their casting.
Well, first of all, there was only one studio. It was Paramount. And there was, after making a few initial ridiculous suggestions, they sort of bowed out. So that was not like Barry Manilow for the lead. Yes, that is now, I think he'll deny it, but supposedly that was Mike Eisner's suggestion. He was then head of Paramount. Of course, he wouldn't admit it now. Nobody would. But the thing that I contributed to that, I read it. And as I was reading it, I think I was ashamed to bring the script in because it was full of spit take coffee on the cover and coffee bottom rings, but that was it was an issue, but it was, when I read it, I knew that in order to make the humor work, those parts had to be played straight. So you go to straight actors, I'm not talking sexually, but actors who are not known for their comic. The only one who did have a comic flair, which I kind of knew, was Lloyd Bridges. He was the only one who I'd actually known. I'd met him several times because I'd hired Bo several times.
When the people go to the audition, do they walk into a room? Are they sending in tapes? Are the tapes made by their managers or agents?
Well, the answer is all of the above. When I was working, it wasn't very common where people made self-tapes. Now, of course, with electronics and the internet and all of that, it's more unusual to audition in an office than it is to put yourself on tape. I'm not working these days, which is great. But I think to me, it was wonderful meeting people in your office and talking to them and getting a sense of what they're like. And when they read, you can say, look, do it again, but do A, B, and C, or don't do A, B, and C, which if you're just submitting an audition on tape, you don't have that privilege of helping the guy or woman.
And what were some other casting missteps in Airplane? Again, where they completely got it wrong?
There were no missteps in the casting of Airplane. The movie is absolutely perfect the way it is and will stay there.
Yeah, who was optional for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? And first of all, great choice.
Well, no, it was Pete Rose.
Pete Rose. Wow.
He wasn't available. And then what's his name, Bruce Jenner, but he said no because he did the Alan Carr movie instead, so he could wear Daisy Dukes through the whole movie. I think that's why he did it. And my third choice was, the best known athlete, so Kareem was next.
Yeah, whose previous screen cred was the 1978 Bruce Lee movie Game of Death.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I didn't care.
Yeah.
And he turned out he was actually the best choice because of his physical size. And sometimes, when your first choice is passed, you luck out with your third.
and then there's that iconic story of, again, I've heard it through years, and also, you recounted it of Danny DeVito's audition for Taxi.
Yeah, that was fucking brilliant. I mean, he walked in, as you know, to have.
And you were there in the room when he walked in?
Of course, the casting director is always there. I mean, well, first of all, I was told my marching instructions when I got the script and I got the job to cast Taxi was, don't waste your time with Louis. All we need is a funny-looking guy, and he's never going to have more than 1 or 2 lines per episode. Now, my knowledge of television is you can never, ever say who is going to pop, who is going to be the big star. Look at Fonzie versus Ronnie Howard. And, of course, Ronnie Howard was totally gracious about his, hey, be my guest. It's only going to, keep us on the air longer. I brought him in. I brought in one other guy who was actually very skinny and small. And then Danny. And, Danny takes the scripts, throws them on the table. Who wrote this shit? I mean, that's Louis. So that was it. The minute he said that, he had the part.
Did everyone just crack up in the room, or did anyone take it back?
No, of course they did.
Because he's basically 4'10", Danny DeVito.
No, it was perfect. I mean, come on. It was exactly what they wrote, but they got much more than they, thought they would ever get. They didn't think a guy who looked like that could also be funny and a wonderful actor. He's terrific.
Yeah, I mean, he was coming off of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where he's playing almost like a man-child in that.
He was not coming off of any big part. They were all small parts. This was, and actually I met him because I cast him in a role as a friendly local neighborhood loan shark in an episode of Starsky and Hutch. Starsky had a number of different directors, and there was one, his name was Ivan, which is Ivan. And he was a very unusual choice because he was sort of a avant-garde director in Europe. He'd done a few independent movies that nobody saw, but, the producers were anxious to try something. Anyway, I brought in a number of people for the role. One I thought would get it. His name was Richard Feronji, Feronjy. But this director, Ivan, said, he's really good, but there's this guy in New York. Please trust me on this one. He'll fly himself out. And I made a few phone calls to people in New York. I said, yeah, he's very good, da-da-da. And I called back and said, fine, do it. And that's how it happened. It was a tasteful director who I trusted, and Leonard Goldberg and Aaron Spelling trusted me completely. I must say, all I had to do was send pictures of who I wanted to cast, and they would okay them. Only once did they question something.
You're stupid. Everybody's so stupid.
And obviously, here at Comedy History 101, we're huge fans of Andy Kaufman and have done many deep dives into the history of Andy Kaufman.
Well, I had nothing to do with Andy.
Oh, you didn't have anything?
No, he was preset. They wrote the character for his character, a fireman. You don't go out and cast that character. He was set. I had nothing to do with that.
So he was it Laka that they wanted originally to do his foreign man character all the way through, or did
it was basically his foreign man character that which is the reason why he was hired. Laka is just a variation of that.
And how much interaction did you have with Andy Kaufman?
None.
None. Okay.
I mean, hello,
yeah.
And he was actually next door neighbor of a good friend of mine, so I would see him when I visited her. So, but no, I did not interact very often with the actors. Just I could keep my objectivity. But they wrote the part for him, and he was wonderful.
He's Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, but then we got the bonus of when he played Tony Clifton.
Yes.
And he had the deal with him was I had 2 contracts. One for Andy and one for Tony Clifton. And if Tony didn't get 4 episodes, Andy had the right to get out of his contract. I mean, that's how complicated it was.
Was he easy to work with, as we see, or not easy?
Very easy to work with. I mean, there was no one who was difficult on the Taxi cast. There really wasn't. It was brilliant writing. And if I do say so, it was brilliantly cast with people that the general public did not know. The only one that they might have known was Judd Hirsch. When you think about it, there's no reason for any person in the country to know the rest of the cast. That's one of the reasons why it was so good. They're all new.
And did Christopher Lloyd come in person, or how did he get cast?
How he got cast is the way casting works. Years ago in New York, before Taxi, I stage managed a production of the musical Once Upon a Mattress. You may either know it or not know it, it doesn't matter, but there was a character in it called the Wizard, and Chris played the Wizard. I had nothing to do with getting him that part. I was just the stage manager. And he played the Wizard the same way he was playing Reverend Jim, sort of a vacant, like a wizard who doesn't really know how to be a wizard. But this was an agent doing his job. I was in the middle of casting Taxi, and a very good agent, Chris's agent, called me and said, someone you know from New York is in town. His name is Christopher Lloyd, and he asked me to tell you that he was in town and available. I said, your timing is great. I have a part for him. And he came in that afternoon or the next day, auditioned, and the rest is history.
Did he have the same agent as Danny DeVito? Because both of them were in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
No. He did not have the same agent. No, it was just a good agent from the Gersh office doing his job.
Yeah.
You know, he had this actor. He saw the breakdown of what I was casting and called.
And then wasn't the series originally be centered around Jeff Conaway because he was coming off of Grease?
No. The original was around a guy who left the show after the first year. His name is Randall Carver. Randall Carver was a cute, waspy-looking guy who the idea was he was the rationale behind his character was he was the Midwestern innocent who arrives in New York with all these crazy people. Problem is, all the crazy people had such better characters than his that he was dropped. Not that he was bad. It was they had so many wonderful, rich characters to write for that they couldn't write for him. And I think also there was enough. There were the younger guys in the cast were, Jeff and Tony were enough to bring in younger people.
You also were instrumental in trying to get like an African-American character in Taxi.
Well, I was the one who made it an issue because how can you have all white taxi drivers? So the part that Mary Lou Henner played, that had so many iterations. And that was the part that they originally was going to be Nell Carter. The writers had worked with Nell Carter on a really terrible urban version of Cinderella a few years before that, where Nell played one of the stepsisters. But Nell got misbehaving, so she wasn't available. They didn't know what they wanted. Casting that role was a nightmare. And finally, Mary Lou came in, and I wanted Mary Lou, if we were going to go white, because Mary Lou, in addition to being beautiful and sexy and a good actress, she could give it right back to the boys when they gave it to her. If they said inappropriate things, she gave it right back. So she had the ability to be, to be one of the guys and be terrific and sexy and sought after as well.
I'm trying to use the phone!
And since you cast for the movie Grease, were you instrumental in bringing Jeff Conaway in? Was that the kind of the link? Or
well, when you say instrumental, I was a casting director, so of course I'm instrumental in everything.
Yeah.
But the point is, I wanted Jeff. I mean, he auditioned. I mean, his competition was Treat Williams, whose agent wouldn't let him audition. So Jeff got the part. And, Jeff had played Zuko, and I think I'm not sure he played Zuko. I'm not sure he played any other Kadiki before, but he knew the piece, and he was wonderful. So, I mean, to me, it was a no-brainer to bring him in. And one of the questions I'm asked is, did it help if people had done the play Grease before? I said, yeah, but generally they were too old. No one looked like a teenager, which was great, but at least they all looked the same, roughly the same, which was around very late 20s or 30. Stockard was the oldest. She was 31. No, Olivia was 31. I think Stockard was a year older than her.
Yeah, I mean, according to what I think I heard you say, like in other interviews, I think she was like 33. So was that the kind of the thought process of, different era where you cast 30-year-olds to play teenagers?
Well, the thing is, first of all, you can't really, if you hire anybody under 18, they're only allowed to work 4 hours a day. So that's one reason for going over 18. And it's Grease is not a fucking documentary. So you don't, the teenagers did not have to be real teenagers. And I don't think it would have worked if they were real teenagers, not for what we were doing. I've seen other versions of Grease, and the movie is the best version. It's better than the one that Fox did. It's better than so many others. Everything was perfect about that movie, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, here. And you've knew John Travolta since he was 17 years old?
Yes, his manager was my best friend in New York. This manager had great taste. You read my book, so you know who his clients are. Barry Bostwick, Patrick Swayze, Jeff, Holland Taylor, Catherine Helmond. Come on, these are all sensational people. And Bob was my best friend. So
you knew him like since 17?
Well, Travolta graduated high school and with his parents' approval, immediately moved to New York. I mean, he was from Jersey, moved to New York, shared a place with several other actors, in fact, a squat. I knew him way before he was famous. And, we still are in touch. He never sleeps, so we do non-sexual midnight texting. The man doesn't sleep. He's a fucking vampire. When you meet somebody early on before they became famous and you were tight, it's kind of a trust forever. When you're already famous, then you have to kind of worry about the quote unquote friends you might pick up.
So you also said that you did some rewrites on the script that went uncredited. What exactly were those rewrites?
What were all through the piece? Olivia, again, most people always talking about Olivia as how beautiful she was, which she was. I always talk about her, how smart she was. You don't maintain a career as a star since you were a teenager by being dumb. Olivia was a few years older than John, and she had done, I think, one movie. It was either Australian or English, a science fiction movie that was horrible, and she was embarrassed about it. Now she's a worldwide pop star at the height of her career. She does not want to make a mistake and be embarrassed by being terrible in a movie. So she asked for a screen test. She asked for the screen test. That's the only time an actor has ever asked for a screen test in my whole career. Because she was smart. She wanted to see how she would look with him and how it worked. So they came in doing the scene from the drive-in, and during the first take, the crew didn't laugh. When the crew isn't laughing, you know you have a problem, because they never heard the material before. It's a funny scene. There should be laughter. Nope. Second take, no laughter. And I said, okay, what's going on here? The director, Randall, didn't know what was going on. And Alan Carr and Bronte Woodard, who were responsible for this version, who wrote it, weren't there. Why they weren't there, it was just really stupid on their part. Anyway, I took the script, the movie script, and then out of my back pocket, I pulled the Samuel French version of the play. And then I looked at the two scenes and it wasn't working because they changed the dialogue. So I gave the play dialogue to John and Olivia and Randall. Next take, they're all laughing. And I knew if that test didn't go well, Olivia would not have done the piece, and I did not have a backup. You would have seen me in the blonde wig playing the part.
And we didn't, so it worked.
Thank goodness you didn't. It's not a pretty sight.
Excuse me.
Found on YouTube the link of Madonna auditioning for Fame.
Yeah.
And it, she's awkward. What were some of like the moments where you think you saw someone and either your judgment was better than what they wanted, per se, Tom Cruise, or someone like Madonna, you go, no way.
Well, they're two different things. No, with Madonna, it was, she was great until she started reading, and then she was terrible. So there was really no discussion then if she had read well. But I mean, because she can act in certain roles, but the part of the virginal girl next door is not exactly in her wheelhouse. So that's not her. What was the other one you had, Tom Cruise? The Tom Cruise is one of my biggest mistakes. I nixed him for a project which is basically Superboy without being called Superboy. And I think he gave a terrible audition, both in the room and on tape. And my assistant at that time, Mary Buck, who went on to become a successful casting director, said, Joel, you taught me not to judge by one test. Why are you being so adamant? And I was just stupid. I made a mistake.
It would, like, if you had to say, the top actors that walked in the room that made the hair on the back of your neck stand on end? You just can't believe this talent. Like, say, I'll give an example. Like, what's it like when a Meatloaf walks into the room, auditioning for Rocky Horror?
Well, first of all, I worked on Rocky Horror with my partners in New York, who I've worked with. So he auditioned in New York. I didn't see him till after the New York auditions, and he walked in, I guess. I wasn't there, but I'm sure he sang, blew them away, and that was it. But I had nothing to do with Meatloaf. I did, however, have an unforgettable sighting of Meatloaf once he got the part, which was backstage at the Roxy, where the Roxy nightclub where the show was being performed. I went backstage one night and I walked in the door, and there he is, sprawled out, completely naked on a chair. It was a sight that somehow will never leave my mind. It was frightening.
And again, different era. And of course, your book's called, Drugs and Sex and the Casting.
Well, Sex, Drugs, and Pilot Season.
Yeah, Pilot Season. Sorry. What of that era, what changed that era where you could...
You say that era, what are you referring to?
Well, like when you could have like a drug-fueled actor show up on set and sort of be tolerated, where do you think it's like now everyone has a camera, there's TMZ, there's no way?
No, I don't. I think if the actor is that important and he shows up slightly toasted, they'd work around it. They'd somehow figure out how to do it.
Like today or in modern...
Yeah. Yeah, if the actor is really that important and he's, no, they're not gonna. It's Matthew Perry. How many times did he show up sort of under the influence, shall we say, or whatever? It's if you can disguise it, which, most addicts, myself included, if I smoke a little weed or something and I have to straighten up, I can do it. It's not unusual. You don't fire someone for showing up once, in a bad way.
But do you think like in the 70s and 80s or, it was just more tolerated?
A little bit. Yeah, I think it was. I think a little more. But serious drug problems were not tolerated. Minor ones were. Now, with the police looking at you, I don't think if you spit on the set, you'll get fined or something.
Just a few last questions here. What was Bob Hope's role in getting Seinfeld on the air?
Well, Bob Hope's role in getting Seinfeld on the air was that he didn't have a role. This is kind of hard to explain, but there was a guy named Rick Ludwin who at NBC at the time, remember I was at NBC for 10 years, roughly from 80 to 90. And Rick Ludwin basically was in charge of late night and specials. And he was sort of left alone. It was a very distinct area where he was wonderful in. And who is going to say something to this guy who's doing a sensational job? He had his own budget for late night, and the comedy department had its own budget. Now, the comedy department ran out of money. Although they wanted to do a pilot for Seinfeld, the comedy department couldn't do it. They had no money. So Rick Ludwin, completely in charge of his money, canceled one Bob Hope special because nobody cared about Bob Hope at that point anyway. I mean, that's obviously an overstatement. Some people did. Most people didn't. Certainly not the younger audience. That gave enough money for 4 episodes of Seinfeld, which Rick, out of his budget, paid for, not the comedy department. Those 4 episodes went on the air, and the rest is history.
And then as far as like casting the regulars, what was your role in that?
I had no regular except the people who were doing it, the producer, the Larry David and whoever was working with him. Those were the 4 people he wanted. And Rick said to me, these are the people that Larry David wants, or not Larry, whoever it is they want. I said, what do you think? I said, they're all terrific. Why not? That was my input. Saying they know what they're doing, leave them alone.
Yeah, and it's like so funny that the initial criticism of it was like too Seinfeld-esque. It was like too New York Jewish, and which is the show.
Well, they thought Taxi was going to be too New York Jewish too, and it wasn't. Come on. Well, of course, New York Jews created comedy on television, so why shouldn't you assume it was?
And then what was it in the book that you left out that you wish you could have put in and it had second thoughts?
Well, it had to do with naming names in the area of Me Too. And I realized I couldn't talk about anybody who was still alive because I could get sued.
Simple as that.
So I didn't. I only talked about people who were dead. And everything I talked about was through firsthand experience. where this really terrific agent, he was a very good agent, and was confessing how he went about seducing young men. I was fucking appalled. I really was. I mean, I'm not exactly the most moral person in the world, but there are things that you do and you don't do. I would never, ever do anything like that, and I was appalled that other people would.
What do you think is the most memorable moment of your entire career?
Well, I think it was when, without knowing how to do anything, I wound up producing the highest rated television movie that year, which is The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. I mean, I didn't produce a movie before, so I'm casting away, and it's a Friday afternoon, and the woman who's in charge of developing scripts for Spelling Goldberg, the production company, Friday afternoon comes into my office looking very dejected and saying, ABC just passed on my favorite project, a script I've been developing for 3 years. And they said they wouldn't do it based on the script, but if we could get a big star, they would do it. It was the Friday. And she said, so can you do me a favor and read the script? I said, what do you mean favor? That's my job. So I'll read this over the weekend and we'll talk. John Travolta's manager, my friend Bob Lamont, who I spoke about a little while ago, we had a ritual. He would come to my house on Saturday. We'd read our scripts together. He had to read scripts for his clients. I had to read scripts for the stuff I was going to cast. So our thing would be laying in the sun, getting melanoma, reading scripts, and then going out to a movie afterwards. He was complaining that day because it was the end of the first year of Welcome Back, Kotter, and his unknown teenage actor client had suddenly had his face on every teenage pop magazine, and because of Kotter, he was it. John, although he's from Jersey and his last name ends in a vowel, is not a Gavone and comes from a very cultured family. He knew he wanted to change his image from playing Vinny Barbarino was his character. So I just finished reading the script. I said, Bob, here's the rabbit you need to pull out of a hat for John. All right, so Monday morning, I tell Cindy, John Travolta wants to do this. Cindy, and she said, you're kidding, he wants to do this? I said, yes. So we march into, I think, Aaron Spelling or Goldberg's office and say, okay, John Travolta wants to do this. And Travolta wants to do this? Why? I said, I don't know. He wants to do it. I didn't ask why. And then, but he wants more money than was in the budget. So Spelling Goldberg calls ABC because they're going to pay the additional money. And Mike Eisner says, why does he want to do this? We've thrown everything at him. Why does he want to do this? Same question. Why does he want to do it? And the answer is, who cares why he wants to do it? He wants to do it. So they wound up paying him $75,000, which is $50,000 over the budget, the original budget. But so what? He was worth every penny. And he had a wonderful time doing the movie. It was great. It was just, I didn't know what I was doing as a producer, but I knew what to do because it's logic. It's just makes, if you have common sense. So I produced my first movie.
What's your favorite story from the whole book?
The whole Grease chapter. Bob Lamont, who I've mentioned his name several times to you, represented half of the Grease cast off-Broadway. And I went with Bob at least 6 times. So I knew Grease in and out way before the movie. And Randall Kleiser, who directed Grease, we have a history that goes back to me casting his master's thesis at USC. He knew nothing about musicals. And he said, I'll take this job if you agree to be on the set every day. And I was, but I had no portfolio. I had no power. And it was a situation I'll never put myself in again because I was at constant odds with Alan Carr, the producer. Alan Carr was the one, he and another guy, they wrote the movie script. And we did everything we could to get their dialogue out and put the original dialogue from the musical back in. They did lots of good things by opening the movie. I mean, Grease sort of works, even though it's California and open. They did a great job doing that, but they unnecessarily changed great dialogue. So we put the dialogue back, and to make sure it was in every day before rehearsal, we gave the cast the new dialogue, ignore the script, and then between that, giving them the dialogue and just natural improv. So if you look at the whole script now, after the movie is finished, there's virtually nothing left of the script that Alan and Bronte wrote. And believe me, we saved the movie. We really did. The movie would not have worked with what they did. But I knew this, and Randall and I conspired, and the cast conspired.
Wow.
The Grease, the movie, we are all still in touch with one another. Barry Pearl I call him Ernestine because he's at the switchboard like Lily Tomlin was. So he's the one who sort of keeps everybody in touch with one another. But there was not one rotten actor or person in Grease. It was a love fest. It really was.
Yeah. It's Grease. That's all you can say.
It's again. I joke about I only cast 3 movies, but they happen to be iconic movies that are going to be around way after I'm dead. And I won't have any grandchildren, but lots of nieces and nephews. Oh, this is what my uncle did.
And then also, you're the man responsible for David Hasselhoff.
The guy walks into my office, and I start a whole career by saying, which I guess not Bold and Beautiful, but the other soap opera that ran forever, a relatively new one, was casting for a new young leading man. I had no idea exactly what they were looking for. But to me, a soap is a soap is a soap. They're all the same. So I sent him off to the producer of the show, and he got hired.
And then who was up for Knight Rider besides David Hasselhoff? I remember it was someone like obscure. No one?
Everyone and no one, because everyone turned it down.
Oh, okay.
The list went on forever. The list went
like who? I mean, again, I remember just reading that it was someone really you wouldn't think of for Knight Rider.
I don't really remember. It was really Baywatch where everybody hated it. Knight Rider went fairly smoothly. I don't remember. I honestly don't. Well, first of all, Baywatch, the 2 writers who wrote it thought they had written Hill Street Blues at the beach. About as far away from Hill Street as you could possibly be, yet in their own minds, they thought they had created something. So their wish list was like way up there. I was going to say, I think Olivier's name appeared on it at some point. It was ridiculous.
Oh yeah, that was it, Laurence Olivier.
Well, it was ridiculous. Basically, there was a list with everybody who was breathing.
Oh, and
they all turned it down. Every single person. And I joke, as some have been saying no, and some said, "Are you fucking kidding? Absolutely not." So it was not exactly, but he said yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's instrumental because it was the first AI starring in a TV show. The car was an AI.
Well, yeah, I didn't even think of that. The car was the star of the show, and William Daniels' voice were the stars of the show.
Yeah.
He could have been replaced by anybody. Those were the 2. Not anybody. You needed a good-looking guy to be in what I used to call a bullshit show, a meat and potatoes show. It was, and it all worked. It all worked out. So, and everybody was happy.
Lastly, what do you think your place is in comedy history?
Seriously, I mean, when I think of what I did in comedy history, I deserve my own star up in the heavens. Just because I was lucky enough to get great projects. I cannot emphasize how much easier it is to cast a great, well-written project than the worst thing to cast is a television half-hour comedy pilot that's not funny. And yet it has to be, it's horrible. But doing that was just a pleasure. It was just so much fun. This book is a book. They print to order or order to print. So there's no stock of them. So you get it through BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon. $28 for the soft cover, and I suggest the soft cover because the hardcover cuts off some of the artwork on the artwork cuts off a lot of Charlie's Angels at the bottom on the hardcover. So buy the soft cover. Softcover is 40-something, $28. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and send it to me and I'll autograph it for them. If they want
Very
to.
cool. And the publisher is it Bear House Manor?
Close. It's Bear, BEAR, Manor Media. They were the only publisher that said yes. So
You're
I
the
went
second
again.
author from that publishing house I've interviewed. I interviewed a guy who wrote a biography of Shemp Howard. That's how deep cut I go. the least likable stooge.
I think I'm the most commercial book that they ever published. Because I look at, their work, they're all sort of interesting, but
Very
much
niche.
narrower.
Yeah.
This one is all over the place. So I hope you all can go out and buy this book. So I hope you all get it. I think you'll really like it.
Very cool. Joel, thank you so much. I love the stories. I love the book. Pleasure to meet you. And it was good talking to you.
When you're 82 years old, which I am, I don't look it, but I'm 82, you've accumulated a lifetime of events. And I happen to have had let's say, a more interesting one, or at least more interesting to me. And because it dealt with show business, everybody wants to be in show business. So people lap up these stories, and the fact that they're true makes them even better.
Very cool. Joel, thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me. You were the most exciting thing that's going to happen to me today.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
And yes, that wraps up our episode today on Comedy History 101. I believe you got schooled in comedy. And remember, check out Joel's new book, Sex, Drugs, and Pilot Season. Also, a big thanks to our editor, John Posell. Kudos to you. And a few quick plugs. On Friday, October 6th, 7 p.m. at the Red Room in the Lower East Side, I'll be presenting my show Tale, NYC's finest storytelling. Also on October 19th, 7 p.m. at Young Ethel's in Park Slope, I'll be presenting my show That 80s Improv Challenge. Also on October 1st at the Santa Cruz Comedy Festival, my show AI versus Human Roast Battle is the opening night show. And you can find out all about my tour dates at Harmon Leon on the social medias or on my site, harmonleon.com. Also, we are soon going to be dropping our first audio documentary. It centers on the Grateful Dead and ticket counterfeiting. And we'll have some more information on that. Also, remember, give us a few stars on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. Yes, show Comedy History 101 a little love, a little support. Every little star, every little comment helps. Or you can check out our site, comedyhistory101.com. And until next time, bye-bye.
You're stupid. Everybody's so stupid.
I'm trying to use the phone!
Comedy History 101.